welcome everybody to the first episode of the Watch List as our inaugural launch of the Latin Nerds Network, the LNN. Here we strive to give you all the best of different perspectives, Latino flavor on all things movies and specifically television. My name is Jose Romero. I'll be your host here. I'll be introducing my co-host in a moment. Very excited. This is our first show to launch this channel. We're calling it the Watch List. You're wondering what it is. Put simply, this is your virtual TV guide, if you will. Me and my co-host, you watch virtually, well, not every show, but tons of shows throughout all the major streaming platforms. And we're here to bring you kind of a synopsis, reviews, and give you an idea of what you should and shouldn't be watching. Kind of guide you through those rough waters of the streaming seas, if you will, because there's a lot of stuff people don't know about. And we're here to kind of give you an idea of whether you should be watching some of these shows. You watch every genre, not just the big ones. We all watch the big ones. I get it, but we're here focusing a lot more on the smaller shows, those hidden gems people don't know about, foreign language films and shows. There's tons of those, documentaries, you name it. We're watching it. We're bringing you our thoughts on each and every one of those. So before I even get started here, kind of give you an idea of what this channel is about. Yes, obviously we're going to primarily focus on TV. The watch list will be our flagship show for the time being. We're all going to do a lot of shows about the news and trailers and recaps, things like that. We'll have obviously reviews on a lot of the big films out there, spoilerific. I actually have the privilege of seeing a lot of screenings as well. The kind of opening back up again. Very happy to hear that. I'm a huge movie fan, and actually get my first one next Wednesday watching M. Night's Old. I'm kind of curious about that, so I'll bring it to you after I'm done. That's going to be on the 21st on Wednesday. And I also have another show debuting in a couple weeks called Nerdsplaining. Right now it's just in podcast form. I co-host it with Brazilian sensation, very funny comic, Eric De Silva, who is as knowledgeable about comic books and geek lore than anybody I've ever known. We'll take a deep dive in all things nerds, news, TV shows, comic books, video games. I have a lot of guests on the show as well, which we interview. We recently have John Levine, who's he's making an appearance in Loki. He told a very cool story about his role on the show and about working with Tom Hiddleston. I've got another good friend, Omar, who's a artist on Pixar's Luca. He came on and gave us perspective on that. He also worked on the initial Avengers film back in the day. So we have a lot of guests coming on that show, so I'm very excited about that. Right now, you can catch us on podcast form, so check us out. In the meantime, we'll bring it to YouTube in a couple weeks or so. So I'm very excited here. We'll have other shows debuting as well as we kind of pick up some steam. I got some other shows, quote unquote, under development, which we'll bring to you. But let's get started. I'm excited here to start here. And actually, we usually have two co-hosts. But today, one of our co-hosts, Miguel Rosa, has a previous engagements. He'll be joining us next show. But I do have here joining us live from Houston. He's our TV guru, a specialist, if you will, the ambassador of love. It's Senor Jaime Romero, a.k.a. Chewy. Chewy, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Hey, brother, what's going on? I'm just the knuckleballer in the lineup.
There you go. You're not really batting cleanup per se, but that's fine.
I'm middle inning relief.
I can live with that. We'll make Miguel Rosa's not here, so he's a guy. He's a bad boy. Until he gets here, then we'll give him a different position. But he's excited to be here with us too. So, but for now, it's just us two. I know it's been a busy first couple weeks of television and streaming. So a lot of shows to go over. Normally, we probably won't talk about this many shows. We'll be on pretty much, I say, weekly, going over what's been released. And we'll actually even every month set the table for you about what's coming out and what streaming service, so you can kind of get your calendar set and look forward to all the goodness that is streaming and binge watching and what have you. So, but Chewy, before we get started, man, I got some very sad news though.
What is it?
A couple of passings recently. So
Oh
this is
God,
going to
here we
be
go.
our in memoriam section, if you will. Yes, this is the RIP segment, of course, and it's bringing some sad news that we have a couple of cancellations, a couple of shows we're going to say goodbye to, which we got wind of last week, and one of them is a show called Curse, which was on Netflix, and even more surprisingly, what's HBO Max's Lovecraft Country, which just got nominated for a bunch of Emmys.
18 Emmy nominations.
18, yeah, absolutely. So this comes as a huge surprise. I know Curse is, to me, it's not a big deal. Maybe this to you, Chewy. I thought the show was fine. It was kind of an interesting take on the whole, King Arthur, Lady in the Water kind of lore and all that. Different, what kind of YA kind of show. It wasn't bad. So I'm not going to say upset that that is no longer going to be on Netflix. But Lovecraft Country was a surprise, man. Your thoughts on that? What's that about, man?
That well, I mean, that's HBO, right? They kind of do this to you all the time.
Yeah,
They'll
but
do 1 or 2 seasons of a show, and then they decide to go in another direction. I don't get it. It was a great show, obviously, a lot of great performances, very good story, and to have it just for whatever reason, not even give you a reason to say that's it, we're done. I'm like, well, thanks for nothing.
yeah, I mean, I like the show. It's a great kind of mesh a lot of genres. That's action, adventure, sci-fi, horror, and all that.
Horror,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
obviously there's underlying themes of social injustice. It didn't rely on it, which is one of the good parts of the show. I didn't think it ended great as far as the last episode, but it was still such a cool show. I know Jonathan Majors; he's moving on to bigger and better things. He took the role of Kang, and
Yes, he
he'll be
is.
debuting, I believe, debuting in Ant-Man next year at some point. But yeah, it kind of sucks. I like the show a lot, and again, it was 16 Emmy nominations. I mean, do the math. So it's I'm surprised to hear that. But I know the creator of the show, I believe, just signed inked a deal with Apple Plus exclusive. So
Oh, cool.
HBO's
Okay.
loss is their
Well,
gain. I mean, I don't think they're going to bring the show back. That could still be an HBO owned property per se, but it is what it is. So it was great one season, but well, moving on. It happens all the time. This won't be the first or last time a show we know is going to get canceled prematurely. But let's get to it, Chewy, because there's a lot of stuff here. We're going to start with the films that got released on via some of these subscription service channels and what have you. We'll first start off with Amazon Prime, and
okay.
they dropped The Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt. That came out at the beginning of July. I think you were visiting me, so we did get a chance to see that together.
Mhm.
It's a movie. It's an interesting premise here. I really like this one because it's a sci-fi action flick. Obviously Chris Pratt was the main character. I guess there's a war against these aliens happening I think in 30 years from now, more or less, and they've wiped out that population down to like 200,000. So some of the soldiers from the past, or future, I'm sorry, go back to the past to try to recruit humans currently living now to go fight the war in the future. Very cool premise. I like that. Chewy, I'll go to you here first. Like what you thought about this one as far as was it worth a watch or not?
I think it's worth a watch, but I will preface that when we first watched it, I fell asleep. I was so damn tired,
And
and
you were
not because
tired.
it wasn't
Yeah,
good. I
yeah,
was
yeah,
beat.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we started watching like 11 o'clock at night,
Mm.
and we were driving. Obviously from Houston to the Pembroke Pines over the previous 2 days. So, but I went back and rewatched it. Picked up where I thought I'd fallen asleep. And I actually enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, it's not a great sci-fi flick by any stretch of imagination, but it was entertaining, some good action. Chris Pratt was pretty good. He had some heart and feeling. And I think obviously they're already talking discussions about having a sequel. So
Yeah.
obviously Amazon is happy with its performance and the numbers and moving ahead with at least started the discussions with the cast. So I'd say that's a watch.
No, I agree. It's just worth watching. I mean, it's not like a great film. It's not one that's gonna stick in your head or anything like that. But
Yeah.
the alien design was very cool. Some of the CG was up and down, but whatever.
I will. I think we should warn the audience: do not get attached to anybody in this movie.
Which is good. Although it's funny because I'm a big, huge J.K. Simmons fan, and he stars as
Oh,
Chris
okay.
Pratt's dad and father here.
Well, he stars as a jacked
Dude, he
Chris
is
Pratt's
a
dad.
monster, man. This
How old is he?
guy,
How old is that
he
guy?
looks
60
90
something.
with the
Dude,
body of a 25-year-old. I swear to God, this
it
guy,
was
Jesus.
ridiculous how ripped this guy looked. I was
Yeah,
like, what the F
wow.
is this guy taking,
Because
man? Who's his
I
trainer?
remember him in Whiplash. He was pretty big there too, if memory serves.
No, I don't recall him
I
being
mean, he
maybe because
wasn't
he
like
didn't he
ripped,
didn't ha-
but he was
he wasn't wearing a cutoff in Whiplash, so maybe I
right.
couldn't
But if you look
tell.
at
He
his
was
arm,
fit.
he looked physically fit.
He,
And he looked big. He looked buff.
okay, well, he's always looked fit. I mean, I remember him from The Wire and even as Emil Skoda on Law and Order, way back in the day, deep cut. But no, this was like just with his age. I mean, this guy was like bulging arms, man. I was like, wowzers, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Good for him. Good
But it
for
was,
him.
but it kept in character because this is a former. He was a military, right? I think was he a Vietnam vet? I can't
Yeah,
remember
something like that.
exactly.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
special forces, and was still involved in some black ops type of operation, off the book stuff. private mercenary, I guess, type of activity. So, but he was jacked, man. I was like, wow.
Yo, that's impressive. But I mean, besides his physique, which obviously we're enamored by, it's the rest of the film. It's a good film. It has some funny moments, cool action. It's worth a watch. And a lot of these times with these, movies that come on the streaming, obviously direct to streaming, the expectation should always be lowered, right? We've seen, particularly with Netflix and Amazon, a lot of the movies come out and they're hard garbage. Let's be honest. But
Yeah,
but they've gotten better over the years. Some good stuff here. And listen, at the end of the day, it's free, right? It's worth a watch. Just curb the expectations. This is not going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. Maybe you think it is. I know this movie's kind of been divisive amongst some of the fans that I've spoken to. A lot of the critics, obviously, Rotten Tomatoes. But I think it's a watch. I think it's fun. It was entertaining. I think it's worthwhile.
yeah.
Another one, yeah.
I think it had positive score from the audiences, which is I listened to more than the critics because I've seen plenty of movies where the critics are raving and it's like this is yeah, disgusting, and vice versa. So
No,
at least in
exactly.
this case, the audience agree more positive than negative on the audience side.
Right, just the
So
fact that there are, like you said, they are going to in development of the sequel. That kind of says it all right there in terms of
yeah,
the reception it received, and like I said, it's a good one. It's definitely worth a
yeah,
watch.
yeah.
Another one here I want to talk about is actually a trilogy of films. Two have been released on Netflix thus far. They're releasing one every week. The last one's coming out in a few days, this Friday, and that is called Fear Street. Fear Street Part 1 is 1994, Fear Street Part 2 is 1978, and Part 3 will be 1666, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me
Correct.
if I'm wrong there, Chewy. But let's start with 1994 one, because I'm a horror fan. I love horror films. I know you're not, so I'm kind of curious to get your perspective, what you thought about it. Because I'm the
Hmm.
horror guy out of the three of us. I know Miguel is also a big horror fan. But I'm the one out of three, so I was really looking forward to this one, and it's surprising because I think the writer is the same guy who did Goosebumps.
Yeah, R.L. Stein. So I was I was expecting a kitty type horror movie. Yeah,
I
I didn't
wasn't.
get
Yeah,
that.
no, this is as hard as you can get, and just to kind of deal what this movie is about, what this trilogy is about. It's a small town which is under a curse, if you will, and I think every 10 years there's a mass serial killings or something to that effect, mass murders that go on, and the cycle kind of repeats itself, going back to again the 1600s. These kids were involved and they get caught up in this curse or whatever the case is, start uncovering the mystery behind it and what's going on, obviously spanning what 300 years or whatever the case is. So it's a very interesting premise, and it's very adult. This is a hard art. This is horror the way it should be, right?
Oh yes,
This is not.
yes.
This ain't Goosebumps. So, trust me.
Language and gore
Language and gore galore here, which is a great
and,
thing.
and sexual situations.
Even better. Um, little teenage. No, what can I say? But
Teen angst.
but I love this movie. It's such a throwback to an homage to old school horror films, right? The first one, 1994, and it's clear, particularly in the beginning. This is a clear homage to Scream. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, Scream. Yes.
An opening scene with what's her name from Stranger Things.
Which Uma Thurman's daughter, I do forget her name.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But it does borrow from a lot of horror movies. And the following the sequel, 1978, it takes place in it's a rip off of Camp Crystal Lake, kind of thing.
Yes, a
Right.
little Freddy,
Jason
Jason Voorhees
Rice. So
action.
it has
Yes.
that kind of vibe to it, and on purpose. So it's a great throwback as a horror fan. I love that stuff. It is particularly I like the first one so far more than the second one. I think the first one had better characters initially, but they're both good. They're both good, but the first one was like, especially in the end, a lot of surprised people who ended up getting whacked and in very gruesome ways. I remember your daughter was watching it with us, and she was like half paying attention, and
No, no, she was paying attention because she ratted on me to my wife about making her watch a horror movie.
oops.
I'm like, I didn't make you watch anything. You were in the room, and every time it got gore, she turned away. But then after the gore, she went back. So take for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, and it got pretty gory in the end. So I like this one a
I
lot.
might,
So
I might have gotten her addicted to horror films. Unintentional consequences.
whatever. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've been guilty of that myself in the past. But so it's surprised because I know I didn't expect you to really enjoy this one, but it seems like you did.
I like both of them. I think the first one because I was a fan of the Scream, at least the initial movie, where that kind of took me by surprise. I don't know what I was expecting when I saw that, and I enjoyed it. And so this one was fairly enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, like, it kept you on the edge of your seat. It had some scary moments. It had a little bit of blood and guts, which is always that's a prerequisite for talking about a horror type genre of film. But you know, story made sense, and obviously they've woven this continuity between these three different eras, which the third part coming out on Friday on Netflix will look to wrap up. But yeah, I think it's definitely, even if you're not a horror fan, I think this is definitely on put on your watch list.
Oh yeah, for me it's a must watch. Absolutely, this is particularly if you're a horror fan.
Mhm.
It's so fun, and I hope they stick the landing in the third one, which I'm sure we'll talk about next week. It's
Yeah.
difficult to stick that landing in as far as ending a series or ending a trilogy, so I hope it gets it done. Then
Mhm.
going back to 1666, that's an interesting premise. It's a lot different from the first two films, so I'm looking forward to it. It's actually a big surprise for me, so I really enjoyed this one a lot. Another one on Netflix that I think we ended up seeing together was How I Became a Superhero. This was
Yeah, that was a Netflix foreign language French film.
mhm.
And I think this was my recommendation to you. I think I'm not sure if this was on your radar, or maybe you mentioned it to me and I looked into it and I said, okay, let's go ahead and watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we watch all the foreign stuff too, and this one is, you know, by the sounds of it, yeah, it's just superhero related, right? It basically the premise is in this world where there, I guess there are, I don't want to say superheroes is a strong term, but those with special abilities, superheroes, whatever you want to
Hmm.
call them. And in particular, it revolves around a detective who used to be liaison with this superhero group, a trio, years before, not disbanded by reasons I'm not going to spoil. And there's a situation now where some people with superhuman abilities are being kidnapped. They found a way to extract their powers, and now they're kind of setting them in drug form to young kids who when
Hmm.
they, I guess they kind of sniff it, they gain that particular ability for a period of time. It's very reminiscent of Power, which came out on Netflix with Jamie Foxx last year, just as far as that basic premise. But this one here was interesting. I like the idea behind it. For me, it's more like filler. I'm not sure if I tell you guys to rush on and watch it. It's fun. It's fine. The problem is that I don't think the world building wasn't quite there. Like there were teasers with some. They didn't show a whole lot of these special ability people with special abilities here. Very subtly here and there, but not enough to kind of get you excited. You want a superhero role. You want to kind of dive in that kind of world, like The Boys, for example, right? It seems that people almost the people are in actual this world didn't care about the superheroes. It wasn't a big deal, you know, and they didn't focus on that. It's very subdued. Towards the end, it did. We got some kind of superhero like action and fun enough to where I say, okay, if they ever make a sequel to this, I probably would watch it. But it's not one I'm recommending right now. To hey, you guys got to watch this right. If you got 2 hours to kill, sure. Chewy, what do you think about that?
No, I think I have to disagree. I actually enjoyed it
Okay.
probably more so than you. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect. I might have seen a review in Rotten Tomatoes saying to watch it. I was like, okay, let me check it out. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. I think, you know, from my perspective, they did enough world building because there's ancillary stuff going on throughout the movie where they interject commercial as people watching TV. There's commercials about the superheroes. There's a YouTube a personality doing a poll on the top 10 superheroes and whatnot. So it's obviously it's part of the world where there's non people with and without powers. And but the focus is all on this individual, this police officer, right? Who I don't think we can get into it without spoiling it too much. You know why it's focused on him so much
Right.
throughout the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. We're not gonna do that. No spoilers here. But yes. Um. So
Explains where we're at.
right. You broke up there for a second, but that's okay.
No,
But yeah. So you obviously recommend it more than I do. And that's fine. Like I said, it's not terrible. I don't think it's a bad film at
no,
all.
no,
It's, you know,
no.
if you got extra time, definitely catch it. You know, just like we will refer to some of these shows as filler shows, right? The ones where you don't they're not much watch, but a lot of times in between the shows when they come out, you need something to fill the time. These are the kind of shows and movies and that we recommend to you guys, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I got two here, which I know Chewy. I know you didn't see one. You saw kind of a few minutes of the other, which are turning out these are don't watch. You know, and I want to warn you guys because we just talk about the good. We
Pass.
want to talk about the bad here too, right? We watch the shitty shit, so you guys don't have to here. The first one is Dynasty Warriors, and which is based off a PlayStation game. I think PS2 back in the day. A bunch of sequels. It's a period piece. You know, it's kind of an action game. You know how these feuding, you know, Asian, factions and his big battles and what have you. So it just seemed like some kind of big epic kind of film, which I'm a fan of. And yeah, I remember I downloaded this to go on the plane. I was flying to Houston, had a couple hours to see it. I didn't have my headphones. Well, you had earbuds, so the headphones I didn't have, so I couldn't watch anything that the plane offered because it's Jackson. The plane, of course, they don't have any, so I was stuck with either watching Dynasty Warriors or nothing. I started watching it, and in 20 minutes, I was begging for this plane to crash. This movie is ridiculously bad. It looks terrible. The acting is bottom level. It's so bad. I ended up turning off and just twiddling my thumbs for the rest of 2 hours I had in the flight because I had no choice. Do not watch this. It's straight garbage. Another one which is not that bad, but I didn't quite get my attention. That's Major Grom, the Plague Doctor. It's a Russian show. It's a movie. I'm sorry. We have this cop who I guess is going after this vigilante, going after these criminals, and he has these little flamethrowers, and he burns them alive. Whatever the case is, and I gave it 20 minutes. I gave every movie 20 minutes to see how it went. And I'm not saying it was awful, but it was very campy, and some of the officers and that are surrounding the main detective were just goofy and silly and dumb. And maybe it's a Russian. I'm not a huge fan of Russian shows, and I probably should have been the warning not to watch it. But yeah, I don't. Yeah. 20 minutes, I didn't get hooked. I know, Chewy, you kind of saw bits and pieces of it, but I'm gonna imagine that this wasn't for you either. Wondering what you watched.
No. I saw the 2 minutes maybe, and I was like, this is not good.
Right, it's not good. Yeah, it's on the plus.
Niet.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Ukraine. On the plus side, it's better than Dynasty Warriors. So if you're in a situation where you can only watch one of those two.
Gun to your head.
Sure.
What are you gonna watch?
Whatever, but it just take the bullet. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Another one we saw that came out on Disney Plus, of course, that's Monsters at Work, which is of course a spinoff of Monsters Inc., Monsters University, of course, one of Pixar favorites. Mm-hmm. And this came out Disney Plus last week. A couple of episodes dropped. I'm a huge fan of Pixar. I'm a big fan of Monsters Inc. So and it does bring back the main characters, Sullivan and. Sully, yeah, and Billy Crystal's character, I forget his name, whatever. At any event, and this is one where we saw it. So again, we saw it with you, Chewy, last week when you were down here, and I was kind of disappointed, to be honest with you. It's not a bad show. It's not. It's a great family film, family show. All that, of course, is Disney, it's Pixar, but cool premise. It focuses around a monster who just was about to graduate scare school, but of course now it's all about laughs, not the scares. And they changed management. Now Sully and Billy Crystal's character. I forget his name. You gotta remember his name, dude. They took over the Scream Factory, or now the Laugh Factory, whatever the case is, to gain energy, et cetera, et cetera. You guys are familiar with the movie. And so this kid gets there, and it's no longer needed. He was recruited to be he was one of the top scarers ever, and now he's got to kind of find his way to give him a position, almost like in IT, I guess, or whatever the case is. And
no, more like maintenance.
There
right?
you go, maintenance.
Maintenance.
There you go,
yes.
maintenance. So there's a group of characters that are there. That's what the focus is on, and it's fine. I mean, I don't know. Joey, tell me it was okay. It lacked any heart, any soul so far. And I know it's early, but Pixar magic's all about the feel sometimes, and this just lacked it. I seem to just kind of buy the numbers, kind of family kind of show. I don't know. You tell me what you thought.
I mean, it was okay. Obviously, with the movie, with the Pixar movie, you kind of got to compress everything into that 2 hours, right?
Sure.
And so I think this is their first foray into doing I want to say a sitcom, but it's a 25 minute weekly show.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So maybe it'll turn out to have some of those feels as we learn more about the main characters and the group that surround him. Obviously, the focus is not on Sully and the guys from Monsters Inc. Then now they're more ancillary characters, right? They're running the show, but the focus is on this group of misfits, I guess, what you call it, or maintenance fits.
Fair. Yeah.
What they're
fair.
Minfits, whatever it is called. And so, like I said, it's 2 episodes in. Let's see what happens. Let's see. It's okay. It's a good family show, and if you're a fan of Monsters Inc., you probably will enjoy this. It's not terrible. It's animated.
It's okay. It's fit. I mean, I'll continue to watch it. Maybe it gets better. I don't know. But we'll probably mention this next week to see. I think it's every Wednesday on Disney Plus. Am I wrong with that? I think.
Yeah, it drops every Wednesday. Obviously, with Loki wrapping up, this is supposed to be the premiere Wednesday show until the next Marvel show comes out.
Okay, so let's see. I mean, right now it's good filler for me, with the potential of being more than that. It is Pixar, so I'm gonna give it a chance, of course. Another one that came out recently was Netflix that had a Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, a very short four episode series here. This, of course, is based off the popular PlayStation game. Here, focusing on Claire and Leon, who were introduced in Resident Evil 2 back in 1998. And it's short. It's about 30 minutes episodes, more or less.
Yeah, 2 hours total.
Yeah. It's almost like a movie broken up to four parts. Essentially, is what it is. And I love Resident Evil. I love the games. I play them. I saw some the other things that have come out in shows. The movies have been straight garbage. I mean, they make Dynasty Warriors look watchable. Well, maybe not. But
I've lost track of how many movies. I'm not sure what number they're out there. It's like the Fast 9 series. It doesn't stop.
Fast 9 is the Citizen Kane compared to this film's very bad. But that being said, not a bad show. The animation wise, it was cool. It looked like CG game animation for the most part. Sometimes it looked great.
Yeah.
Sometimes the movement was a little off. The actual movements of the characters, not a huge deal. It was fine. Again, it's one where, for me, if you're a huge fan, I guess it's a must-watch. For you guys, anybody else, you don't have to really be familiar with the lore of Resident Evil per se to, I think, get something out of it. But at the same time, for me, this would probably be a filler. True, your thoughts?
I don't know if this is filler. I think this is one you guys can pass. This is just a glorified cutscene from the video game, honestly. It was not very compelling. I finished it because there was only 4 episodes, so I was already pot committed.
Right, of course.
But I mean, I had more expectations. We've had such bad movies, and I thought, okay, maybe animated they could do something great, or anime style, and kind of stick to what we loved about the original video game. And this is just okay, but just okay is not good enough for this, man. It's a pass.
No, that's fair. I get it. Yeah, it's barely filler for me. Again, if you're a fan and or you like some of your stuff, I'd recommend it.
I mean, this is a glorified cutscene from a video game. That's all this is.
Right. It's again, if that sounds like your thing, go ahead. I'm not saying rush out and watch it, download or whatever, but buyer beware when it comes to this one. We got a few more shows here to talk about. I haven't seen any of these. I'll let Chewy take the lead on this one.
Okay.
I know you told me about a couple of these, but I'm gonna probably watch some of them. But I want to first start with How I Became a Tyrant. It's a Netflix documentary, I believe. Chewy, tell us about this one.
Yes, that's a Netflix documentary. It's a 6-part documentary, a half-hour episode, so it doesn't take up too much of your time. It's narrated by Peter Dinklage of Game of Thrones fame.
Nice, little Tyrion action.
Yeah, a little Tyrion action. But you almost don't recognize his voice until you see the end, say narrated by Peter Dinklage. Like, oh crap! Then you put it together. It doesn't sound like Tyrion, right? So he's a little bit more subdued.
Well, I'll ask you,
but
quick,
regardless,
did you see the whole thing?
Yeah. Yes, I finished the whole thing. That's correct.
Did it end better than Game of Thrones? No, I'm just kidding, dude. Sorry.
Well, couldn't end worse.
Have to jab in there, sorry. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this one looks at the 5 or 6 qualities or things that tyrants all have in common, what they do, and they take one aspect and portray it through some of the major tyrants in history. So we have Hitler, we have Muammar Gaddafi, we have Kim Jong-un, and we have Idi Amin. So you kind of throw in each episode revolves on a main character, main tyrant that we've had through history, and it gives a little bit of synopsis of what they are and then one aspect that they focus on. So they're talking about having surrounding yourself with yes people, and then having a scapegoat, and those ideas that leads to them becoming as powerful as they are, and kind of and some of them stay in power longer than others. But that's the kind of focus, and kind of give a little bit history lesson behind those tyrants in history.
Yeah, it looked interesting. I probably will give it a watch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good documentaries out there. People are allergic to documentaries sometimes, but there's so many good ones out there that I want to watch.
What?
It's okay to educate yourself. It's fine.
Yeah. No, but this is not a history lesson. This is also a little bit tongue in cheek, right? Because Peter Dinklage is good at using sarcasm when conveying his point, and that kind of makes it interesting. It's bad what they did, but obviously the focus is on not the actions, but how they got what aspect of becoming tyrant was part of their ability to gain power and get into power.
Okay. next one, I'll probably check that one out. The next one here, another Netflix show, and that's Somos. Of course, it's
Yes.
not the Latin Network if you don't talk about a Spanish show here. So
Of course not.
please educate this on Somos and what this is about.
So this one was loosely based on true story or actual events, a border town in Mexico. And basically the story was where one of the cartels that obviously ran that town were hiding out. DEA found out they were there. Then they got wind that there was an informant within the city, and basically did a complete massacre one night in this little town in nowhere, Mexico. I mean, no one was safe, women, children, whatever. So that's where the focus starts from the beginning of where the events are happening. Kind of does a flashback of how this came about and how the DEA interceded to try to get these cartel members, and obviously the net effect as far as the massacre that happened in this town.
Okay,
So it's a serious drama, obviously.
is it a must watch here or what?
I mean, I think it's filler. I mean, obviously it's when looking at these type of stories, there isn't a certain character that you can latch onto and say and care about, right? Because they focus on the town itself and all the people that were impacted by this, and much of it perished, right? So you can't get attached in 4 or 5 episodes. It's very difficult. But I mean, overall, they tell it well, and they kind of go through this series of events in a dramatic fashion. And if you enjoy learning a little bit of actual history and being in a dramatic setting, I would say check it out. But I don't think it's a must watch.
Okay, fair enough. And what about Generation 56, an Italian show, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or am I wrong?
That is
Okay.
that is a Netflix, again, an international original. I think it's a dramedy because there's a fair amount of comedy in this show. I would definitely put on the must
Wow,
watch
must watch.
list.
Okay.
Yes, and I found it to be full of heart, very funny, very relevant. And it's obviously it's akin to your regret and kind of a love story type setup. Kids in junior high didn't have feelings for each other, and they reconnect, but they doesn't know that they're reconnecting, and so kind of there's some shenanigans that ensue from there. It's interlaced with going back to it's between the present and 30 years, 20, 30 years previously. So this is like in the late 90s. So with the advent of the 56K modem and so, you have these little kids kind of discovering the internet and discovering pornography and all the things that come with it and stuff. And so,
So that's all that comes with it is pornography. Let's just stop it right there. That's all.
but, but,
That's
but,
all the
but,
internet's good for. Let's just be honest about that.
yeah, but I mean, but this is serious because obviously one of the girls is dealing with a father who's left home and this kid who just can't, he has these 2 friends. They actually grew up to be app developers, but as when they were kids, they were a little nerdy, a little geeky, and always getting into trouble, being bullied and stuff. But so it's got some very funny moments, I think I think it's a good show, even though it's an international talent show. I think it's definitely a must watch. You'll get some good laughs and you'll get some feels out of the show.
Okay, so can we say the same thing about the AMC Plus series, The Beast Must Die?
Not yet.
Okay.
This is a British. So basically, it's a British crime drama genre, and I have a certain affinity for police dramas from Britain for whatever reason. We've seen so many good ones
Sure.
in Netflix and other shows, so I've enjoyed it. But I've only seen one episode thus far, and it stars Ed Harris. So if you know his work, he's been in The Expanse.
Yeah.
He's actually in the next Apple Plus must watch show Foundation, which is a sci-fi show coming up later this year. He's been in so many different. You've seen him from so many different. He was in Sherlock Holmes with the reboot with Robert Downey Jr. Right, if you remember
Oh,
him, he
right.
was the who's his adversary?
Moriarty or
Yes, Moriarty. So you've seen lots of things. He's a very good actor, very talented actor.
He's one of those
And
guys
so,
from
but
from that thing. Oh, that guy from that thing.
I think so. I think
Yeah, no,
so.
no,
Yeah,
of course.
you've seen him. You heard you hear the voice,
Yeah.
and you recognize who he is. But I don't think he's not a Robert Downey Jr. by any stretch
Well,
of that change.
who
But who
is
is?
exactly?
Yeah. But only one episode. I think we need to table this until I get a second episode and see it. But the first one was good, but
Okay.
it's all set up. So let's see how the story develops with the
Okay, we'll
second
table
episode.
that and see if it's worth a watch after the second episode. We usually give shows around 3 episodes, 3 to 4. That's like the litmus
Yeah, just
test, right? If it doesn't catch you by then,
yeah,
we're off the show, and we will never recommend it to you.
yeah,
Last one here. This is a Disney Plus show, The Mysterious
hmm
Benedict Society. I dropped a couple weeks
yes.
ago, I think. Right? This is a weekly show too, if I'm not mistaken.
This is a weekly
Okay.
show on Fridays.
Okay.
Yes, they're stuck to the Friday format. So this is based on a children's book by the same name. And so when I obviously I didn't read the books, my kids didn't read the books. So when I saw the trailers for this, I was expecting a something akin to the Lemony Snickets and a series of Fortunate Events type show, which was a show that we love on Netflix and I love, right, with Neil Patrick
Yeah,
Harris
that was a really good show.
and some other people. Very good show, very funny show. That had a lot of
Yeah.
heart. So the first episode was all set up. Obviously, they dropped the 2 episodes the first week. But then with the second episode and subsequent third and fourth episodes, I've grown to like this show. It's a lot of fun. It does have that Lemony Snicket's feel and moments where you have these four young kids. They've been thrust into kind of a spy type role to try to uncover a mystery. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a mystery. They hook up with one of the leaders. He puts them in a position to infiltrate a school where they're training future uh, spies per se, and obviously the hijinks ensues for there as far as them trying to figure out what's going on, how to penetrate, how to communicate back, and it's a lot of fun, right? It's a good, clean family show, and I think you will enjoy it.
I'm all for hijinks, so why not? Right? Okay. Um,
And it's funny because I mean obviously it's tongue in cheek, right?
right.
I mean, we know no one's gonna get seriously hurt while we're watching this and stuff, but they use a lot of using the puzzles and mysteries and a little odds and odd characters, strange settings to kind of lay out the show and it kind of makes it interesting. Like I said, very similar to what we saw with Lemony Snickets, where the characters were odd, they were bigger than life. The settings were grandiose, and the storytelling kind of made it all come together, and made it fun to watch.
Okay, so that's what we have so far. So let me ask you this real quick before we sign off here. Out of everything we talked about, what's your biggest must watch? Someone's out there saying, "What's the one thing I need to watch?"
Out of all, well, I'm gonna separate the movies
Sure.
from the TV, right?
Fair enough.
I think from everything that we talked about, I think 56K is probably the top of the list.
Wow.
That
Okay.
was surprisingly very, very good show. I laughed, I enjoyed it, and actually, there's a love story behind it, which that's not a bad thing. We need more love in this world.
And what on the movie side?
Yeah, on the movie side, that's a tough one, man, because
Wow, really? Okay.
uh, well, because I mean, Fear Street's a trilogy, so it's not really standalone. It's all connected. And we haven't seen how it ends, so I can't say, if it ends crappy, how can we recommend that, right?
Agreed. That would be my must watch because
Yeah,
the first one is really good. I mean, I love the first one, right? I
yeah,
think it's
hmm
talking about the movies we've talked about. That to me is the top of the list. As a horror fan, I was like, yeah, I think that they fit. I won't go as far as say they hit out of the park per se, but very close. A solid triple on this one.
hmm
And if it sticks the landing, then yes, it's only going to elevate the whole property, right? So, and I hope that
yeah,
fingers
absolutely.
crossed, and we'll definitely talk about that. We'll do this weekly, and we'll bring this back up and see did it indeed stick the landing or not. Because we're recommending it now, but if it ain't shitty, don't blame us. And we're just the messengers here. We don't make these shows. We just talk about them. But that being said, ended there. Chewy, thanks for joining us. Obviously, we'll do this again next week. Everybody here, comment below if there's some shows that you've seen that we haven't seen yet, we want us to talk about or recommend to us. Please drop in the comments and we'll look at it and we'll give anything a shot. Believe me. If it's maybe some show we've already talked about, we had this in podcast form for the last few years. We could have talked about a show. You mentioned it. We'll let you know if you should and shouldn't watch it. And subscribe, obviously, share, like the video. We have a lot of stuff coming up on this network. All you Latino, my Latino brother and mis hermanos, come out and support us here. And hopefully we can grow this channel. A lot of cool stuff, ideas I want to develop here. I'm going to give it some time before, obviously, let's just let everything's marinate first before we start getting too ahead of ourselves here. But that being said, Chewy, thanks again. And we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.